folks that we understand are giving the updates. I see a couple more on there. Welcome to everyone. But we just want to make sure we get started on time. Brett Sellers, I want to check back with you because you are one of our first speakers.
Yes, ma'am. I've made it in.
Perfect. Thank you. Hey, well, it is 1:30. My name is Joanna Regal. I work for KMJ Consulting. We're a consultant to the Eastern Transportation Coalition, and we want to welcome you to the Travel Information Web Roundtable. No, it is not a food discussion, but if we stay on at the end, we could certainly have one. We want to welcome everyone today. We want to get through these housekeeping items. Hopefully everyone was able to follow the audio instructions. They are provided at the top, and we'll keep them there for the first couple of slides as we go through. Here's some housekeeping information, and it's a little bit different. We have a lot of updates. We're so fortunate so many agencies were willing to share. So just some information about giving your update. We're going to go basically in alphabetical order with the transit-related agencies at the end. Right under the participants, you'll notice there are two files. One is at the agenda for today, and the other one are the slides, so you can download them at any time. You will need to unmute your audio to give your update, and in the meantime, if you could just keep your phone or computer muted, we'd greatly appreciate it. We will be happy to move your slides for you. You just need to say next, and we'll move to the next slide. Again, as I mentioned, lots to hear today. If you've looked at the agenda, if you've had a chance to download it, you'll see we have 18 agencies who are giving updates. So we're asking at this point if you could keep your update to 3 to 4 minutes. Again, everybody has the slides, and I'm sure that your peer agencies would be happy to answer any questions if you want to follow up with them after this meeting. We are going to use, if you do have a question during the meeting, please feel free to put it in the chat box. If it doesn't get answered during the meeting, we will follow up and make sure it gets answered and the information gets back out to you. Again, if you're not speaking, we ask you to mute your phone line or your computer audio. This web meeting is being recorded, and it will be made available to you following the meeting. It'll be on the Coalition's YouTube channel, but it'll be unlisted. That means that just the folks in this meeting who receive the information will have that link, as well as the people that, if you share it with someone in your agency who you think needs, would benefit from this information. If you're having any issues with audio or the web, you can always reach out to Justin. His mobile is 484-557-7009. As I mentioned, we have a lot of updates, so we're going to ask you to use the chat box for your questions. If you can direct them to the person giving it, so if it's for Chet, you say @Chet and give the question. Chet can then either follow up with you later, or if he has an opportunity, he can put the information in the chat box and he'll respond back to you. Thanks for being our example, Chet. Again, at this point, I'd like to just confirm that you do have your phone line or computer your audio muted, and I would like to turn it over to our co-chairs. We have both Kelly Wells, who's the State Traveler Information Engineer at North Carolina DOT, and Mary Mean, who's the Executive Director of NJTPA with us. We're going to start out with Kelly today. Kelly, would you like to take it from here?
Okay, sure. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It looks like we have about 21 participants, so that's wonderful. I know a few months ago we got together to talk about traveler information, but it seems like a long time since we all met in person. I think it was back in, I can't remember exactly where it was, somewhere in the Mid-Atlantic we all met last year. And so today is another chance to get together virtually, but to just talk about what's going on. People will say, oh, I heard this was happening in Virginia, or this was happening in Tennessee. And until you have these kinds of meetings where we can really dig in and talk to each other, you just don't have the full picture. So I look forward to hearing what everyone's doing today. I look forward to hearing new things that are coming, and just us all sharing over these next 90 minutes or so. So like Joanna said, try to keep your updates to 3 to 5 minutes, and please feel free to use the chat to share after that. So with that, you can see the agencies that are on the slide. We have a great representation, and as she said, we're going to go alphabetically through the states, going through, starting with A, obviously. So with that, Joanna, can flip to the next slide. I believe we will start with Alabama. So Brett, are you ready to present?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brett Sellers with Alabama DOT. Glad to be here and looking forward to hopefully learning from all of you guys, but we'll briefly show you some of the things that we do. So basically our traveler information platform, the basis of it is our algo traffic webpage that you're seeing there. I'm sorry, it's not a very good picture of it, but this is where all of the information that we collect and harvest into our 5 regional traffic management centers is turned around and spit back out to the traveling public. All of our weather information, crashes, incidents, construction, every bit of that's here. This is our one-stop shop. Next slide, please. So within this page, these are a couple of snapshots from additional pages within the Algo traffic page where we tried to break down traveler information to make it a little easier. As far as like travel times, you'll see that page there. We have all of our interstates within the state listed. You can click on the interstate shield at the top, and then we've chosen kind of generic waypoints along the way. So for instance, on I-65, you can get travel times from Birmingham to Montgomery, Montgomery down to Evergreen, then on down to Mobile. Those kind of things to give people an idea of what that travel time to and fro looks like. Also, all of our cameras are located there. You can click by the major metropolitan area to view those, and then traffic reports, so events and things like that. Next slide. One of the other means that we use to display information, each regional TMC has a Twitter account. We also have one statewide account to where these are automatically generated based off of events that distribute out to algo traffic. There is a tweet generated with location information, things of that nature that goes out, and you can subscribe to these based off of the different areas that you have interest in. Next page, next slide. And then our obviously our overhead DMSs, we utilize those to provide travel times or other pertinent traffic messages, weather, all those kind of things. And then we also have a 52-week PSA calendar that we try to use to navigate the different safety weeks or construction weeks, those kind of things that we all subscribe to and try to get word out, and then backfill in with other non-texting, driving, DUI, those type of campaigns that we do with our other stakeholders. Next slide. And then so kind of our on the horizon side of what we're looking at, this is what we're calling an algo kiosk. We're looking to start rolling these out in our welcome centers and rest areas. This would basically be like a 55, 60-inch television screen that we would display weather information, algo traffic pages upstream and downstream of that location, travel times, and any social media feed that we would put out there. Next slide. I think that's it for me. Yep.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. I think we are just going to keep going. If you have any questions for Brett, go ahead and pop them in the chat. I have one for you, but I'll wait for just a minute. So with that, we will go on to our next presenter, who is Jean Donaldson from Delaware DOT. Are you there, Jean?
No, Kelly, actually, Jean can't make it today, but I do have a question. Connecticut, I was going to provide the update for Connecticut, but I see that Rich Lawner, you're on the call. Would you prefer to give the update for Connecticut, or would you like me to do it? This is Denise. Rich, you there?
Yeah, I don't have any of the notes from this. This all came from Hal. I'm just popping in.
Okay.
Check it out.
Okay. Okay. No worries. Hal sent me the update because he couldn't be on the call. So let me do this really quickly for Connecticut. Some of the questions that we had asked, and Hal brought back a summary update of what Connecticut's doing. They have a what's called a Connecticut Travel Smart web page. They're one of the few states that don't have an actually 511. So they have a smart web page for traveler information, and then they use all of the standard, DMS, VMSs. They use highway advisory radio, which is, I think, becoming more unique as technology moves forward. And then also they're very active on social media with Twitter, and they're in the early stages of Facebook. And of course, we always have our PIOs with press releases. One thing that they are doing, though, which I think is in providing information to the public during winter weather conditions, they're doing a lot with, like, slippery road conditions are possible, or reduce your speed, or don't crowd the plow. And of course, they use the DMSs or dynamic message boards to do that. But they're also in the early stages of rolling out a statewide MDSS, which is a maintenance decision support system. So they're going to use that to provide some real-time road condition information to the public. And they'll do that via, again, the DMSs and their smart travel webpage. They also have been very, I guess, forward-thinking in the use of an API data feed with Waze. They're using that, and they're using the feed from their centralized, like, ATMS system. It sends data to their third-party subscribers, Waze being one of them. I think they were listed from Federal Highway as one of the more, I guess, advanced users of Waze, which I thought was great, and I wanted to share. And then I guess from a transit perspective, they're very transit oriented, but I don't have any update on that. I'll just have to get more of that from Hal. And Kelly, to your question about, there was a question that was asked from you about states and dealing with, like, unknown incident duration. How do they manage that? So I think what they do, at least from Connecticut's standpoint, is they estimate clearance time for incidents based on information available at the time. And then that's how they enter it into their ATMS system. Okay, so that's it from Connecticut. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. All righty, back to you, Kelly.
All right. Thank you so much, Denise. And next we have Georgia DOT. So Matt Glasser, please take it away.
So real quick, I wanted to go through, what we do, and very similar to what Brett said, overhead message boards, our 511 system, that being both web-based as well as phone-based, utilizing Twitter, Facebook to get messages out. A lot of times if there's a big event, we'll use that as our press release to help get that information out. Go ahead and get to the next slide. What I wanted to do is share with you guys some of the things that some of the new things that we're playing with. This first one we started playing with last year is actually from the oil industry. Basically, they use fiber optic cable that's alongside or inside their pipelines to determine where leaks are, and they're able to do that in 100-foot increments. So we partner with a company called OptiSense, or for a product called OptiSense, to utilize existing buried fiber optic cable alongside our interstates to get speed and congestion maps built for us. And we did this along I-20 within Metro Atlanta. The initial feedback was actually a lot better than we thought it was going to be. I think we were all pretty skeptical, but we just kind of went out on a limb on this one. And what made this interesting was that the way that we built our fiber network was that it would slide underneath each of our entrance and exit ramps, which again, with the way that this was built, they were able to build specific channels for each of those entrance and exit ramps and estimate volumes, getting in and off the interstate. So again, that turned out a lot better than we thought. We're trying to figure out how we use this longer term, if it makes sense. Obviously, vehicle probe data still ends up being cheaper than this, but the granularity that this has is significantly better. Go ahead to the next slide. Getting back to the information to the public, this was one too that we're very excited about. We're in the midst of a trial right now with a company called Carbine for their product called Sea Light, and what that is quite simple. Pretty simple. Basically, if you're a motorist and you're stranded alongside the interstate or a roadway, and you call 511, our operators can send you a link via text. You press I accept, and it shoots the TNC an exact location of where you are. I imagine everyone that's in an operations center is quite familiar with the travelers who say, I'm on I-75, when in reality they're on I-85. They say they're eastbound, when in reality they're westbound. And so this is, the initial results that have come back from this, again, have been very promising. One being that we are able to get the incidents put into the system a lot faster because our operators are no longer having to, scan the roads for a stalled vehicle. They're also seeing higher accuracy rates where we're deploying our hero and champ units. This is being done on a small scale, but, again, with the types of numbers that we're looking at, it is not uncommon for us to take in excess of 10 minutes trying to locate a caller through traditional methods. And with this, it's down to 10 and 20 seconds. So again, very excited about it. The other part that we're looking to is utilizing it for construction and maintenance workers who are on the side of the road that are getting ready to activate a TIR, traffic interruption report for lane closing events. Again, just so that we can get them moving and to work faster. Next slide, please. I don't want to steal this from Pennsylvania because I imagine they'll be talking about it. We're using a system that they really piloted with help. We just call it GA Alert. Our slight tweak on this is that as opposed to someone being stuck in traffic for 4+ hours, which I think was how theirs initially started for winter weather operations, we're using ours for preemptive alerts. So if people are coming up on a dangerous slowdown, then we're blocking out an area to say you're approaching a dangerous slowdown. Please slow down. So that's our tweak on it. We've only been using it in rural areas thus far, but again, the initial feedback that we've been getting from citizens has been very positive. And then the last thing, if you'll switch to the next slide, is a similar idea of providing preemptive alerts through Drivewyze, which I believe a lot of states may be familiar with in terms of way in motion. They partnered with NRIC, as a matter of fact, to do dynamic alerts for dangerous slowdowns. Prior to us knowing that they were doing that, we had actually set up a pilot to do static notifications for areas for high truck rollover and crashes around Metro Atlanta. We got that kicked off over the summer, and we're expecting our I guess first phase of results, first published phase of results in December. But the initial results, down here at as you can see in that bullet, is that we're seeing a 13% decrease in hard braking events at these 6 locations. We have one of them off the map. And while that certainly, doesn't tell us what's going on with crashes, any safety person would tell you that they'd want to see, more than a couple of months worth of data to determine safety impact. We certainly felt like that was very promising and a leading indicator that we were being successful. Some of the areas saw as much as 25% decreases in hard braking, while others were about 2 or 3. Those 2 or 3% areas, we have since gone back and tweaked the way that we're doing that. But the short version is that the way that this works is that it sends a notification to the electronic logging devices that truckers are required to have. It provides an audio message as well as a visual message saying you're approaching a hairpin curve. You might want to slow down. Typical, high congestion area, slow down. So again, initial results seem to indicate that this is working, and assuming that they continue along that path, this is probably something that we'll look to expand next calendar year. And that does it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. Good stuff from Georgia. Next, we'll go on to Maine. Colby, are you there?
Hey everybody. I'll talk really quickly about, just to start off quickly about a hard time going through the slides. There it is. I'll go just a quick summary about the different sources that we use, and then dig a little bit more into something a little bit more specifically. So just as far as question-based, how we provide information to the public, our message boards are using our Compass ATMS, not the money machine that the typo here shows, but our ATMS system, kind of just like every other state has been doing. And then we also send the events to Waze in that same API type feed that Connecticut uses. This is a shared 511 site, New England 511, that we share with New Hampshire and Vermont. You can see down here in the bottom right corner, you've got the developer portal that's circled. That's what Waze and other data vendors will pull from a lot of the event information that we have. We find that's a really effective way to get it out to the public by giving them the option to pull it and get it from more than just our 511 site. We have targeted travel time signs, stationary ones that are on the side of the road on the interstate that we've kind of directly placed, but we've got it set up in our ATMS system that we can set up travel time messages regardless of where it is in the state, as long as we have probe data available for those areas. And that's been really effective for us. And then we work with our social media mainly through our creative services team, main DOT, that works under our PIO. So to move on, next slide. We to dive into how we use weather information data and emerging technology for winter messaging specifically. So we've been working a lot harder this summer so that we can, and late last winter, so that we can pull in more information and proactively respond to events instead of react to them as they're happening. So we're getting a lot of forecasts and a lot of information from our RWIS systems and RWIS forecasts that we are either proactively using social media for, whether that's our PIO and creative services group being involved in the group calls that we have, or being on severe weather reports that we're getting so that we can warn the public beforehand. And then our TMC will manage the message boards manually. And then next slide. And then even using that data for automation from our RWIS. This is something new that we're just trying out this winter. We're going to have message boards automatically activated using alerts. You can see kind of here on the right on this picture, we are starting to use it really only with our reduced speed to 45 signs on the interstate, just as a test to see how the process works. We're hoping to expand it for different weather conditions as we move forward in the future. And it's going to be based on grip conditions so that we can get the message out, but so that it's not out too long so that people start ignoring the messages. We want people to know that whenever it's out there that it's going to be effective and that it's going to be important. And we're not doing it fully automatically. So we've got a human in the loop type of system set up where this alert or this alarm here on the left will pop up, and the operator will be able to decide whether or not that message does want to go on or whether or not they want to get it taken off. So we're hoping to work with that. Next slide. And then using our RWT app that we developed started developing in 2018 and have deployed just this year. The way that we're going to be getting that information out to the public is going to be through visualization sort of like this on our 511 system, where whenever the road conditions, the weather, and then the temperature outside, then the pavement are reported, they're color-coded into our system and kind of seen in this sort of mosaic so that people can see, okay, where am I now, where am I going through, and where am I going to, and what are those conditions going to look like. We have automated alerts that are coming in to our TMC, but then also to the crews around. So that's going to be publicly available information, but also information that's available to surrounding crews through notifications without having to go and look for it, which will be really helpful. And next slide. And that's it for what we have for this presentation. I've got other slides after this if anybody's downloading that answers the rest of the questions. But I think I'm done with the presentation.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Colby. Good stuff. Very nice. All right. Our next presenter is Marilyn. Jason, are you ready?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go take it away.
All right. Thanks so much. You can go to the next slide. So like most DOTs, we have the standard stuff still. We have our Maryland 501 website, which for those who are familiar with our program here, it's really just a chart website with the 501 brand added to it. The other thing we did is created a separate Twitter account for Maryland 511, separate from our SHA organizational account, that includes an unmonitored feed, if you will, from our ATMS. If certain events meet a predefined criteria, it will automatically tweet that event to this separate Twitter page. Again, it's not monitored, but it is something that people can subscribe to see updates. We find really it's used mostly by some of our media partners. Instead of looking at the static web page, they'll monitor this Twitter feed. And of course, DMS, you'll notice that we did leave off highway advisory radios. We've started decommissioning those, even some of the more modern types. We just find that we're not getting as much value from them, so we started sunsetting that. New things that we've joined, we did join the Waze CCP now, the For Cities program. And in our operations center, our operators are entering major closures manually onto the Waze map. We found that to be particularly useful for large-scale detours or areas where we do have certain plans in place where if the roadway is blocked, we will have certain intersections or certain ramps closed as well. So we're able to go on and add those locations onto the Waze map so it doesn't try to route people through these, closed roads that could be there for hours. And then, like Georgia mentioned, we've also begun the process of procuring the help platform. And similar to Georgia, our intent is not just to use that for full closures, but for incidents that have a large-scale impact, we'll call it. An example is our Bay Bridge that bridges our eastern shore and our western shore, the main crossing, the only crossing in Maryland across the Chesapeake Bay. We had a jumper situation on there 2 times in 2 consecutive weeks. And while the roadway was not closed entirely for the entire duration of the event, which lasted about 20 hours, they would stop and start it, and it caused about a 10-mile delay. That's an example of a situation where we see us using this to try to provide detour information. You can go to the next slide. As far as providing information for weather conditions, this is an updated look at our 511 chart website with a section specifically dedicated to those weather conditions, trying to call out the things that matter most. You'll see snow emergency plans, incidents, weather-related road conditions, separating only those closures related to weather, truck parking, and then the new product, if you look towards the middle middle right-hand tile, the storm platform, which you can go to the next slide. The storm platform is the site we use to display our snowplows. So we did decide to start providing that information. You can see only available during the season. So if you were to go to it now, it's not all the vehicles are not all showing. It is like almost like a demo site, if you will, until we turn it on at the end of this month through the winter season. We only show the last 30 minutes of activity, and vehicles are stationary. We will remove them. And one of the concerns we had was, the public perception of, well, why wasn't my road touched? And, well, how come this truck's been sitting even if it's before that 10-minute window has occurred? So there's an extensive FAQ on there that goes, through all the questions you could possibly imagine. Our RWIS data is all publicly available. We used to allow the download of archive data as well from the RWIS stations, but we've since kind of sunsetted that. They can still request it, but it's just not readily available on the site. And a separate page, one of those tiles, would also display the amount of equipment we have. Again, just trying to be transparent and show as much as we can to the public of what we're doing. You can go ahead to the next slide. The other thing that we do believe in heavily is trying to solve this incident duration problem. A lot of the things we've talked about, whether it be help, how far back do I go with messaging on my DMSs, notifications that I have to make. Anyone in TMC can tell you a large factor of that is how long is this incident going to last. So one of the things we've tried to do is use data analytics to predict that. So what you see in the picture here is a tool we had the University of Maryland Civil Engineering Department kind of work up for us. Every year they do an analysis of our program. This is an expansion of that, looking at our TMC data for the incident prediction. And based on the information that's inputted into our TMS, what is the type of incident? Is it debris? Is it a collision? What's the severity of the crash? Number of vehicles involved, pavement, wet, dry. Is it a hazmat? Is it not? The type of responders that are on scene. It takes all that, and it comes up with what it believes to be we like calling it the probable duration of the event. And right now, this is only done for our 95 corridor between Delaware and down to Virginia. There's a project getting ready to wrap up right now that expanded it to the I-695 Baltimore Beltway, 495, I-95 Capitol Beltway, and I-270. And then our phase 3 is going to be to try to make this not network specific, but by roadway class. If you look there on the right-hand side where I have delay cleared, scene cleared buttons, that's a section of our ATMS that actually has a piece right now for estimated hours to clear. That's a manual entry by the operator based on information they're getting from the scene. So they'll ask the responders for an estimate based on their operational judgment, and they can enter that into our ATMS. The problem is right now it doesn't do anything, doesn't go anywhere. It's really just an informational piece. We see this as something that could be published on the website or something that could be shared with the Googles and Wazes of the world, because it's information that we would know, and then just adding that, data-backed aspect to it. Next slide just shows a table of the success rate, if you will. So I've highlighted in the bottom right-hand corner, the success rate got to about 93% as far as it predicting it correctly. Based on an update we did with the June 2017 model. And again, there's only 95 corridors, so it's not widespread proven across all the networks, but we are excited about the potential of it. We're still working to integrate it directly into the ATMS. Not quite there yet, still standalone piece of software. The operator has to go and re-enter all the information again, but a powerful tool that we think that we'll be able to use down the line. And for that, next slide should be it for me. I'm happy to take any questions in the chat box or later or by email if anyone wants to send me a note.
Okay, wow, that was really interesting. Hopefully the next time we have a meeting, you can go into more depth on that. I think a lot of us would be interested. So good stuff right there. Thank you so much. All right, our next presenter is Massachusetts. So Chet, are you ready to go?
Thank you very much. I am Ozzy here, longtime listener, first-time caller. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge that services here at Mass DOT is a real cross-discipline effort to include our PIO, planning, IT, ITS, snow and ice, HOC, and of course the TSMO team. And we have a really great team, and I appreciate all of them, and they do great work. So like a lot of you, we share all of our core information out of our TMT. We call it an HOC because we have to be different via XML. That's picked up by all the big players, Google, Waze, as well as a lot of small players that feed other traffic applications. We have two main Mass 511 products. We have the Web UI, recently refreshed with our long current vendor, and we just launched a mobile platform, and we're very excited for that, to have that via iPhone and Android and whatever else people might be using. We also still run an IVR, and we've done a lot of analysis, if we still should, and it's got a real hardcore following that people just really like it, particularly folks of an older generation who are retired and travel down to our big destination resort area. We are going to a new version of that next week, which will be completely hands-free and do all voice commands to be in line with our hands-free laws and mandates. So that's exciting stuff. Slide, please. So on our web UI, we have the legend you see on the right for information that we provide. Just this last September, we started providing weather alerts, weather forecasts, and weather radar. The area in the dash box is what we provide via our mobile application. And again, we're working hard to expand both of those. One of the very exciting areas that we're working with our snow and ice team to improve upon travel information services is giving them more road information when it comes to weather. We've really upped our game at Mass DOT in understanding our roadway network through RWIS and virtual RWIS soon. So we're thinking about ways to best share those real-world conditions in regard to roadway temperature, grip, winds, and roadway conditions in regard to when was this last hit by a plow or a sander or a brine machine, and what does that look like? Slide, please. So some other real exciting things that we're doing, and we just got off a great phone call today with Open Trip Planner. We're really thinking multimodal and what's called shared travel, which is where your commute is broken up into segments by domain. So we're working hard to do a February-March data update to our website where we'll have things like park and ride information, bike sharing programs, shared travel, even COVID testing, hopefully COVID vaccination sites, freight parking and amenities, covered roadway conditions, ride share, our Go Time, which is an RTTM Bluetooth-based throughput system, and linking to all other resources, whether it's transit or our Port Authority or our flight information, and really becoming a one-stop shop for all travelers and the information that they need. Slide, please. So to be honest, this was a good question, and we really thought about this. We hadn't really changed our 501 game with COVID. We've started to use those alerts on the 501 dashboard to link people to COVID resources. We're getting ready, and we're thinking about putting testing sites and vaccination facilities, as I said. And we've had some VMS campaigns for PSAs, and we're reflecting that on our 511 page. Slide. We do a lot. We have really reinvigorated our use of looking at our patrons' use cases and who uses this and how they use it. Just in the last week or two, we started looking at where our most popular viewed cameras are. It was Andrew's idea, a very good idea, trying to understand where people are commuting from, the time of day they're using this, trying to understand what these customers need and give them the feedback and the resources that they need to do their job and get to work on time in a reliable manner. Slide, please. So I think we've covered this. Yeah, so we provide all kinds of information via API and XML. I know with Denise I've talked several times about the opportunity to really think about getting on board regionally and nationally and providing a common core set of data to all these third-party apps. We are now re-exploring doing an API out of Mass 511 to various developers, which makes it a lot easier for companies like Google and Apple because they can just hit a couple of vendors and have 2/3 of the states with one data dictionary and one API key and not need to conform to all of our various XML and API formats. Slide, please. And we see that obviously as an extension of providing this information. We do link, we do center-to-center notifications with our statewide transit operations center, and we share events that have impact. We play with the big boys, Google and Waze. We're full partners in those folks. And then we're really trying to leverage those assets to think about mode shift. We used to say highway mode shift was getting people into transit. Now we really think about mode shift of trying to stop people jumping off our transit system and keep them from going back to a single occupancy vehicle and trying to get them on any kind of high density transportation system that we can. Slide, please. So the last slide, I got to be honest, I will be reaching out to Maryland. We've always had the operational philosophy that we don't predict event duration and end times because of the complexity of events. And I use this picture here in our tunnel of two motorcycles. If that's a 400cc bike versus an 800cc bike, that's a significant difference to load. The closer bike you can see has no handlebar, that's harder to load. And then if there's any injuries and fluid spills, there's fluid spills on this. So the challenges of events are quite unique, but I'm very impressed with that 93 percentile that I just saw in Maryland. So I will be reaching out to learn more about how you're doing that and then what you're doing with that. And I was excited to hear that you're sharing that potentially with your partners so they can have an understanding of clearance, so they can use predictive travel time to restore the full capacity to the full roadway. So I'm pretty excited by that, and we'll be engaging. Thank you very much, and we'll stick around for questions in the chat box and afterwards. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chet. Very good. Let's move on to New Jersey DOT. Sal, are you ready to go?
Good afternoon, folks. Yes, I'm ready. Sorry to disappoint. There is no PowerPoint. Things are a little bit hectic here in the Garden State, dealing with the pandemic and a number of other items. So I can certainly provide a little bit more information in written format if anybody would like that, or be glad to answer any questions related to our program as we move forward. New Jersey DOT has a very robust traveler information program. Kind of cover the information in question one as far as what we're doing to provide information to the traveling public. We have two mobility operations centers, one in Woodbridge, a 24/7 center, and one in Cherry Hill. We sort of split the state in half during the weekdays and on special events and weather information. We also have Twitter feeds for every limited access highway that comes out of our 511 product, our website. And we also coordinate all major incidents for relay to our communications department via the department's official Twitter feed. We're very happy that our governor's office regularly uses 511 as a tagline in a lot of their promotion for traveler information. Our DMS signs are regularly used for both traveler information. We have a safe passage program, which is a coordinated effort between New Jersey DOT and the other state transportation partners, the state police, the Division of Highway Traffic Safety here in New Jersey. And we've also made a new initiative to combine that with the state's recently updated Strategic Highway Safety Plan to promote a different kind of messaging strategy, recognizing that crashes are not accidents. We use our DMS signs as well to provide information related to weather. I guess that can jump into question number 2. We provide weather information related to anticipated winter weather, anticipated rains, and we also do something called a winter weather congestion alert. For those of you that may remember the Gridlock Sam phrasing of a gridlock alert day in New York City when you try to go see the Rockefeller Christmas tree, people would try to avoid driving into town at that time. We created a partnership with local radio and television traffic reporters so that whenever we send out press releases stating that we are essentially as a department saying that tomorrow will be a winter weather congestion alert day, they recognize that it's a good time for people maybe to change their hours or telecommute, which is somewhat easier these days considering the pandemic. We've been doing travel times on our interstates for several years. I think I saw Dennis Modiani on the webinar. Shout out, big boss. But we've also started initiating travel times on arterials this year. We also show alternate route travel times to the same destination. So for many of you may know, New Jersey has a shore area. It's one of the economic engines of the region. And a lot of people come from New York City, travel through Staten Island, and go down to the shore. However, on Sunday nights, the return traffic often crushes our partners at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and they often crush the closest bridge to the shore, which is the Outer Bridge Crossing. In a partnership with the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, our technical partners at Transcom, and our team, we offered a travel time destination from the Jersey Shore up to the Verrazano Bridge, either taking the Turnpike and a further north bridge, or our roadway and the closer bridge. So we're doing comparative travel times with the same destination. Technology or emerging technology that we're using, we are continuing to have very good success with our 511 suite of services. Back in 2019, just over 4 million people visited our website. In 2020, it's just under 3 million, recognizing not as many people are driving. I'm sure that is a part of that. We did relaunch our website back in the summer of 2019. It is now mobile friendly. We now have access to view our cameras via your phone. We also included a real-time transit layer, and we have a safety service patrol layer where through a partnership with FHWA's Everyday Counts, we received a State Transportation Innovation Council grant and partnered with ICONE to place ITS hazard beacon technology into our safety service patrol vehicles. You now have a layer where you can see where our active safety service patrol vehicles are on our 511 map, but what it also does is whenever we activate our lights on our truck, it sends a signal through an XML feed to Waze, and if a vehicle is driving up to that truck, it will get a message saying, first responder ahead, slow down, move over, in support of our move over law. We also use the 511, we also use the INRIX Help program. Everybody brands it differently. We call it 511 NJ Connect. We launched that last year, the partnership between us, the Turnpike Authority, Atlantic City Expressway, and State Police's OEM. We have also been one of the first to coordinate our 511 traveler information via Alexa and Google voice assistant programs. If you have an Alexa device or a Google device, you can ask for New Jersey traffic, and it will connect you to the same feed that our 511 systems have. We are going to be coming out with Siri shortly. Has the COVID pandemic changed the way you're providing traveler information to the public? We have provided a number of different types of messages. Some of you may remember our governor ensuring mask wearing and social distancing by letting people know not to be a knucklehead. You may have seen the article in some of the national newspapers that that was up on our DMS signs in relation to social distancing. We do use data to make decisions about traveler information. We have both HERE probe data and INRIX probe data provided to the department via our Transcom partners, and we use that both in an analytic perspective for historical delays either during winter or special events, or as a regular real-time awareness of our roadways. Transit operators do provide information to our 511 traveler information site. I recognize they have been having difficulties in terms of ridership over the past several months with the pandemic. And incident duration, it's interesting. I was looking at our map. We go month by month and report our statistics up to the Governor's Performance Center. And one of the things that we've recognized with incident duration, maybe not necessarily with how do we handle it when we don't know the end time, but our incident duration shot up during the height of the pandemic. For those of you that are mathematicians, I'm not. I'm a former bartender. The more incidents you have of smaller duration, it helps to weigh against the incidents you have of longer duration. So if you have less traffic, and significantly a lot less traffic, especially in April when New Jersey faced one of the highest drops in passenger vehicle VMT, your incident duration goes way, way up because those smaller incidents don't get to weigh down on the bigger ones. We're seeing a normalization of that over the course of the last several months with a return to traffic patterns, but there's still a significant number of people that are not going to work. 80% of the volume is somewhat back, particularly on the weekends. We're back almost to normal in certain spots, but with a lot of remote class learning and people telecommuting, traffic is really not back to 100% normal. We do follow the Federal Highway Traffic Incident Management Performance Measures with all of the T1 through T7, I think it is, performance measures from incident detection to roadway recovery, and we work with our partners at Transcom to be able to help calculate those. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions either here in the chat or on email, and thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Sal. We've seen the same things with the incident durations, and we had the same conclusion that when N is huge, when there's lots and lots of incidents, it's exactly what you said. So we just had that conversation yesterday, so pretty cool. All right, let's move on to New York State DOT. Paul, are you ready to go?
Yes, this is Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Take it away.
Great, thanks. So for providing information to the traveling public, there's not much change here at New York State DOT. We primarily use our 511 New York system. We use the web, mobile, and IVR. The IVR is primarily used downstate through MTA. We're also using our VMS messaging system. Our governor's office likes to use it for things such as COVID announcements and also alerting the traveling public and people going to parks at certain trailheads or parking lots are full because people are getting out more on the weekends. And we also do use it for weather alerts. For our winter weather conditions, we continue to show our winter road conditions on 511 New York. It's an IBI product. Something that we've added that is new, you can see on the screen there, that we've added this brown update pending and gray no active reporting. We found that sometimes on these larger events that affect large portions of the state, that some areas will actually stop reporting because the winter road event or the snow has stopped, but there's drifting going on in other places. So we're still reporting on winter road conditions. So we just want to let the public know that that maybe a snowplow is having difficulty getting through the snow, so the update is pending, or that basically the event is over and there's no active reporting going on right now. For our unique or emerging technologies, no really big changes here other than, and this is probably no big news to anybody else, I think we're the last state that's actually signed on to a Waze agreement, so we now have Waze for cities, and we're going to begin figuring out how we want to integrate that with our 511 New York system. Next slide. So for our COVID pandemic, how have things changed? Not much has really changed. We continue to use our 511 phone system, and VMS messaging. I think, and we use social media, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, for getting information out. What has changed is how we use our VMS signs. Again, as I mentioned before, that we use a lot of COVID messages. So when you come to New York State, there's one small ask, wear a mask. We also have information sometimes regarding certain areas where there's congestion or parking issues at parks or trailheads to alert the public that they need to park in designated spots or look for someplace else to go for the day. That was primarily during the springtime when things were when the weather was getting nice. As the weather's changing, we did have a little snow here yesterday, so I'm sure those messages will change. As far as third-party vendors, we continue to use and share mobile app API information with TomTom, Garmin, Google, Apple, etc. So I think we're pretty routine right now. There's no real big changes going on, and I think that's all what I have. Do I have another slide? I don't think there's any. Nope, there's my information. If you want to contact us, there it is.
Very good. Thank you so much, Paul. Way to go. All right, and I'll wrap up the first half with a quick update from North Carolina DOT. Go ahead. I just picked 3 topics to talk about. We have a way less sophisticated system for winter weather. We don't have RWIS. We don't have AVL on plows. We simply have 100 county maintenance engineers manually rate the conditions of their roads. We went from a case, this sounds simple, but we went from a case where we used to default to clear because I thought that made sense. But one of my coworkers said to me, you know, really we should default to a place that says no report, and then only when people specifically say clear should we post clear. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but sometimes when someone says something and it makes so much sense and you've never thought about it, it's pretty cool. So we've gone to a place where we default to no report. If you specifically say clear, it will show clear, but otherwise it shows that little blue snowflake, and then we report conditions on our interstates, primaries, and secondaries, and we now also display the last update time, which we never did before, but now it's out there for the public to see. Next slide. The second point was unique or emerging technology, and so just something we do. We're not a help state. Actually, we've had 2 major crashes in the last week where we've had lots of stopped queue, trapped queue complaints, like 9 hours on Monday, I think. There were very few DMS in the corridor. We really didn't have a way to get to those folks. So what we tend to use is the wireless emergency alert, which is really just a one-way version of help. And I really appreciate the folks at Info Logistics because they explained to me, you really can do a push to your travelers that are in a stopped queue. You can't do two-way communications like you do with help, but for free, you can get with your state emergency management agency and draw a polygon and push messages. So just a reminder, if you're not able to spend the money to do an official help, you can do kind of like a low-key free version with your emergency management agency. Next slide. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, what I was talking about, and some of you have hit on it, was when we put information into our ATS, every incident has a start time and an end time. And Denise and I were chatting yesterday that maybe not everyone does that, but I don't know. It's just been a tenet in the way we've done this for 20 years. So it's always been difficult to predict end times, like the gentleman from Maryland was saying. But for us, it's particularly difficult, I wrote, when we honestly have no idea when the road will open. So big bad crashes when the infrastructure is damaged. I imagine in Georgia when you had that big fire, you really, truly had no idea when that crash would reopen, when that road would reopen. Maybe this is unique to us. Maybe you all don't have this, but we have a coastal highway that is a huge tourism. It's an important link in tourism, which is a very important industry here. And so when that coastal highway gets flooded by the ocean, we predict, we say, hey, it's closed now. We think it might open Saturday at 5 o'clock, and we have people lining up at the barricade. And then when they change it to be noon on Sunday, these people say, well, you said it was going to open at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So it's been a real struggle. We've really debated what to do with that. And then in hurricanes, we have the same thing. We had 2,500 roads closed, and most of them we had no idea when they would reopen because it's riverine flooding, and it has to do with the speed of the storm and all kinds of factors. So we put 2099 as our end date because we had to put something, and then we got lots of comments from people saying, what do you mean this is going to be closed for, 70 years? And so I don't know. It's just something we've talked about putting an unknown end time, but I'm just afraid that incidents are going to get orphaned. We don't have an ATMS, so this is all manual. Most times we have about 300 active incidents in our system at any given time, so policing 300 incidents is a little tough. So I don't know, it's just been interesting to hear what you all say, but anything that you all can say for the use cases I've described in the chat, I would be happy to hear how you predict end times for those kinds of incidents. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary to introduce the next round of speakers.
Thanks very much, Kelly, and to all the speakers who preceded her. This is a very brief halftime show because we still have a lot of presenters to go. So I'm going to just go right into it. And PennDOT will be next up, and I believe Daniel Farley.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to talk about a few different things very quickly. First thing I wanted to bring up is we do have our 511 PA. This is a joint contract now between us and the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Last year we joined forces and have one contract now. It has been very beneficial because a lot of the ideas and thought processes that both agencies have are now being collectively utilized and leveraged kind of moving forward, and I'll talk about that later in my slide here. The next thing I wanted to mention was the mobile app. Like many have mentioned with the help, we do have the 511 Connect, that is that stranded notification system that we do provide. In addition, with our mobile app, we do have the ability to provide slowdowns and other event information using our 511 app. The nice thing we did add is we did add that you can actually add either Waze or Google on top of it. So it actually acts as a secondary verification to those data sources as well to be able to use that. In addition to that, we also changed our IVR to be more of a traffic report, more of like a traffic on the 8th type of information for that region, because navigating an IVR is sometimes very difficult and very complex. We decided to go the traffic report route to simplify that aspect of it. In addition, we do have a PennDOT Developers Corner for third-party providers that want our data sources. Currently, we're giving our camera as well as incident information. We are talking with our bridge folks right now, giving bridge heights and other things like that, hopefully in the very near future to provide that information. Like everybody else, we are providing COVID information when requested by our Department of Health. The one thing we tried to do is tie in a safety or mobility message to the COVID messaging. So one panel would be COVID related, another would be a safety message to try to intertwine that still the safety intent of the messaging. Some of the other things that we've done from a traveler information perspective is we have deployed mobile cameras and mobile changeable message signs in rural areas to really address gaps that we have in the winter months, our problem areas, to really provide additional traveler information to motorists that are actually out there. So we've been very successful at a very low cost to get mobile cameras and changeable message signs integrated in our ATMS platform and utilized for that. We do provide winter-related public information, RWIS, snowplow, AVL, road conditions, forecasting, our rest facilities like has already been mentioned before. We do provide performance awareness during the holidays and special events. This typically, with the upcoming Thanksgiving Day holiday, we did provide trend maps this year. Because of COVID, we're not providing those trend maps, but just providing warning information as to when the peak travel times would be, because we're not really sure what the travel patterns are going to be this year compared to others. One thing we have worked on is a commercial vehicles restriction page, which I'll kind of talk about. You can go to the next slide. I'll talk about the last two on the. One thing I did want to provide here is we did try to lay out how we're using third-party data. This is just for informational purposes, but kind of shows you the wide variety, wide dynamic of how we're using third-party data, whether that's Waze, INREX, or other data sources that are available here. Next slide. We're also using it for performance metrics. with respect to congestion pie charts and really diving it down deeper to understanding what the causes of congestion are so we can adequately provide the appropriate traveler information. So we have been diving down and doing deeper dives with that information. Next slide. One of the things that we have worked on, and this will eventually evolve into most likely a dedicated commercial vehicle page on our 511 website. But for winter months, we do provide a lot of winter weather restrictions. Early days, we started out with GIS maps. We've moved to more of an interactive map now that gets displayed on our 511 website, which kind of shows the traffic conditions. So both agencies provide their restrictions in their ATMS platforms, and that information then gets communicated to this web page that really kind of shows those winter weather conditions. Next slide. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is a kind of a twist of the help situation, which I know was kind of talked about before, which is we're trying to virtualize the highway advisory radios and making them more dynamic and allow for geofencing and push notifications of traffic alerts to those that subscribe to our 511 service. So essentially our 511 service right now provides voice, and we do provide an IVR when we have floodgates. What we're looking to introduce is geofenced alerts during our drive mode, and then those alerts can get pushed out to those that subscribe and that are using our app. And we feel this has a lot of value because it's really repurposing the need and the intent of the highway advisory radios, and I think both agencies are excited about this when we're hopeful it's going to launch in early 2021 here. So with that, that's my update right now. I'm turning it over to Mike.
Hey, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. And Mike Pack from Pennsylvania Turnpike. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you speak up a little, Mike? Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay, thanks.
No, you sound like you're in a tunnel, Mike. You sound like you're in a tunnel.
Interesting.
Did we lose Mike?
I think we have audio.
Mike, we're not hearing you. You may need to call back in.
Any better? No?
Yep, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, my microphone's, I need to get a new headset here. If I start to cut out again, please let me know. Yeah, thanks, Dan, for that good overview of our joint 501 project, and we are excited about the push notifications that you did mention. So I don't have any 501 slides since Dan did cover that, but I do want to talk about some other things. So next slide, please. Okay. All right, so old school ITS devices, as you can see, we are still deploying dynamic message signs, ML or the DMS we have on our main line, and the pre-entry is our DMS that we deployed on PennDOT roadways before entry onto our system. Now you can see down there in red, Highway Advisory Radio, our hard devices. We actually removed them about a month and a half ago. We did have 38 transmitters, and we've been kind of looking for, identifying enough justification over the past few years to really decommission the Highway Advisory Radio transmitters. And I think the final nails in the coffin. One was our IT did a security assessment on all IoT devices radio system would require a good amount of work and substantial cost to actually upgrade those to meet the security requirements of our IT folks, but also with the good work that Dan and Ryan McNary did in identifying, really kind of laying out the push notifications through the 501 system. So that really kind of helped us justify that as well. Next slide, please. And I'm sorry, you can go to the next slide. So our data sharing, like many of you, we're a connected partner with Waze, which I believe going on 5 years now, I believe, and I'll talk a little bit more about them, about Waze on our next slide. But we've also recently entered into a data sharing agreement with Google, and we're actually going to start the actual data sharing with them this month. And as others have mentioned, we also have an agreement with several freight applications. With Drivewyze, we've actually, similar to what one of you presented earlier, we also have started sharing our sharp curves with them 3 or 4 years ago now. We're running on, but we're actually going to start a quick analysis to see if we can see any changes in the truck rollovers that we've experienced on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, to see if sharing that data with Drivewyze has made any impact. I also want to quickly mention that we did start discussions with Apple a few months ago now, and I think we're gaining some traction. We actually went through a few different contacts, and we think we have a good contact with them now, and it seems like they're ready to start moving forward with us and kind of looking at our data sharing agreement and starting that process. I'm interested, maybe as a follow-up, to see how far along Mascot is and see what kind of experience they have had with them as well. Next slide, please. For Waze, nothing earth-shattering here, but one thing I do want to mention is, we do, for our full closures, we do have access to into the Waze admin to make sure that our road does stay closed for the duration of the event. We've also worked with them to set speed limits, and primarily speed limits to our toll plazas. Before COVID, we still had toll takers at our plazas. Now we're all electronic, but we were really concerned with some of the speeds that we were seeing to our toll booths. So we actually did work with Waze to have our speed limits actually displayed on the Waze application. And starting soon, we're kind of working through the standard operating procedures for this, but based on what we deem as highly reliable Waze data that we're filtering into our ops folks, we're going to start dispatching here soon based on those Waze alerts. Next slide. Similar to what Sal presented earlier about with his iCone device, and shout out to Sal for kind of helping us through this process. But we ended up going with a company called House Alerts, and you can see some pictures there of what you actually see from a House Alert device. So basically, what it is, it's a device that's installed. It's actually hardwired in 97 of our maintenance vehicles. So when a light package, when the lights are activated, they'll automatically start sending an alert to lasers that they're either responding or that they are stopping on the scene of an incident. And we also just recently worked with House Alert to develop portable units. One of the challenges was, if we're not able to really kind of hardwire a device into, say, a portable TMA, we wanted to make sure that those vehicles would be able to actually plug into the auxiliary portable unit to activate the same House Alert devices that the hardwired units do. First 9 months, we actually have over 1.4 million driver alerts sent just from those House devices, which were primarily from those 97 vehicles. We do pay approximately $700 a year per unit, about $1.95 a day or so. And if you're interested in checking that out, you can see the House portal there as well. Next slide. Another thing I wanted to mention, since this is fairly new from what we're told here in the U.S., is a radio alert that we actually integrated with a curve warning system that we've had in place at Breezewood exit ramp for some time now, for over 15 years or so. But we did want to test this technology out. So we worked with a company out of Australia, I believe they're called EWS, and support from AMH Corbin and Transport to install this radio alert system. So the system was actually interfaced with the activations of the truck rollover system, and radio alert would actually send an over broadcast over 2 FM stations that are in that area, and it would play a message that would repeat, I believe, 3 times of a sharp curve ahead and to slow down. So the process, the way this worked, we were able to get approval from the FCC through an experimental license for the FM frequencies. You can see there the red dashed line around the curve represents the installation of the leaky coax along the outside shoulder of that ramp, and the green really kind of represents the broadcast range that was transmitted with how it was set as far as the broadcast range. One of the major challenges is that, you know, we have to get approval. You have to get approval from the actual FM stations in that area to be able to over broadcast those safety alerts. We were able to get 2 out of the 3 FM stations in that area to agree to that experimental license, which actually expires at the end of this year. However, we have been working closely with our IT group and EWS to plan to request to extend that experimental license and kind of move that system and test around one of our tunnels that we're going through some reconstruction, and interface really with the queue detection system that we have in place, as well as give alerts for when there's a crossover in place. Next slide, please. And then here's the number of radio alert broadcasts. You can see by the number of weekly activations, we average around 11 or 11,500 broadcasts a week. And since the system was deployed, the experimental license was deployed, we sent over 200,000 alerts. No complaints from customers. I'm surprised. I actually thought we would get some complaints, but also kind of unsure how many of those alerts were actually heard from those 2 FM stations. As this was more of a test of the actual technology to really prove that it would work. Now moving to the experimental license, if we do that extended for the tunnel applications, one of the requirements will be to make sure that we get the major FM players in that particular area to make sure that it's worth that investment. Next slide, I believe that's all I had to share today. Oh no, one more thing. Sorry about that. Truck parking management system. Next slide. So we were able to successfully get a federal grant, I believe, came through PennDOT to deploy a truck parking management system in our service plazas. We have 17 service plazas, and we were able to, with the money that we have from the federal grant and the match, we're able to deploy the phase 1 at 10 service plazas locations. So it'll be your typical truck parking management system with the in-out detection. We do have a camera. We actually just took the drone out, our drone a few weeks ago, to spot the camera locations within the plazas to make sure we do get full view of the truck parking area. Now, one of the things that we're not doing that you typically see with these systems is we're not deploying the dedicated static sign with a blank out counts for the truck parking area. What we're doing is we're actually sending that data feed to our ATMS, and for certain times of the day, overnight, we're actually going to set to display truck parking availability on our DMS in advance of the truck parking areas. Next slide. And this is really just kind of a quick overview of the design build RFP that we did advertise, and we had notice to proceed this past July. Like I said, we're working through design. We did our field views, spot locations of the cameras and other equipment, and we expect to begin construction soon after the turn of the year. And the total contract cost will be just over $3 million. And I believe that's all I sent to you guys. Okay, yeah, thank you. Hope you're able to hear me the whole time.
Mike, thank you so much. And I noticed that we still have a number of presentations, and I'm wondering if I could indulge the group to maybe stay on another 10 or 15 minutes. It was fascinating information, but we do still have some other folks. So hopefully whoever can stay on will do so. And if you can't stay on, no fear. This is being recorded, and as it was said before, the full presentation will be made available on the YouTube. So with that, I would like to introduce Russ Holt from Rhode Island DOT.
Yes, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll be real quick. Let's see. I hope everybody's doing well. The updates here, really nothing groundbreaking. Everything I've heard from the others, we do pretty much the traditional things for ATIS. So we have websites with everything you see listed there. Different types of media interaction. Facebook and Twitter we're pretty proud of because we're pretty active with that, and we find that reaches a lot of people. Email, we have targeted travel advisory emails that go out, just like all you guys do, I'm sure. The CMS system we have is only about 60. We're so small here, but those are still critical devices for us. We post a lot of messages there. And then 511 and HAR, I'm glad to see lately some of the other states, they've gone away from HAR, even some several years ago. We used that for years, but we're really phasing it out. We're just kind of abandoning in place, I guess, kind of. We just don't find as much usage as we envisioned. The 511 system, too, is interesting. That term, right, it came from the feds, I suppose, and the Fed requirements for the regulations of the CFR. I guess Rhode Island treated it as really a phone number mainly, and we've always had websites for travel information, but the phone number for a long time, it's still there, but it's just not, again, it's not really used much. We're finding people are relying on their mobile devices, smartphones, website stuff, so those are being kind of abandoned. Next page, please. As far as weather conditions, nothing really unique. Everything we do on the previous slide, we do during winter as well. There's one exception. I just thought of it as I was getting ready to present. We did have the classic case of our, dare I say, governing agencies and governor type direction to post things on our signs. And we have a policy that's not always enforced the right way for our CMS. So we did have some messages for a while during the COVID pandemic that said, websites and phone numbers and things, and we know that the TMC guy here, we know we're not supposed to be doing that for different reasons, but we were kind of trumped on that. But other than that, COVID-19 has not significantly changed what we do for travel information. We use the same methods we've always used, and we hope we're reaching the right people. So next slide. How is data used? Basically, I'll just skip to the unplanned events. That's really what most of us are talking about, the real-time operations. We're really kind of behind the times a little bit on this. We are manually entry. We don't have an ATMS in place for the state. We have dedicated operators in our TMC, but usually things are manually entered based on information we have for where incidents are happening. What Kelly asked about the planned estimated duration, we usually try to avoid that and just stick to it's a current situation, real-time status, what's going on, that's what you report. Okay, left lanes are closed, that's what you report. If we're asked to report how long do you expect, we'll do kind of what I think Sal and Dennis were saying in the chat box. You kind of say it's estimated to be this, but it's dependent on all these factors. So I'm glad we're not forced to kind of put in estimated duration in any of our tools. We just stick to the real-time notifications. And then at the bottom, we do use TSMO performance measures. We've done a good job highlighting which ones we want to focus on. But I'd be lying if I said we're really using them so far. They're still new to us, so there's not a dedicated team who's actually taking them and acting on them in terms of what travel information we should provide based on those PMs. So next slide, please. Just about done here. Anything emerging? Basically, we have a statewide CAD system. For a statewide, that'd be pretty good, right, for a whole state to have it. It's been talked about for years, but legislation stalled just this past year, and so it's still not in place. The funding is a big issue for that and buy-in from local agencies. But the CAD system will be excellent for situational awareness and us getting the TMC getting the information out to public. Since 2018, we've used the Waze data freely to post travel times on our signs. And that might be important to some of you should you ever have your funding slashed, kind of like we did, and have no money to pay for probe data. Well, what would you do? Well, at least we were able to use the Waze data. We felt it was reliable enough to post travel time messages, and we're actually still doing that. We do now have access to INRIX and RIDIS. Thankfully, we just regained it. We didn't have it for a while. And there's a lot in there that we can do. So much that we're not doing yet. I've just learned today and reminded today of all the things some of you guys are doing with the push out to mobile phones. I mean, that's really what we want to do going forward, and that last bullet shows that. There's so much capability that we can do to reach people on their mobile devices in a safe way rather than relying on the traditional ways. And we are just hoping we'll have the funding to do that. But that's real quick. That's about all I have.
Well, thanks very much, Russ. And we'll move now to South Carolina DOT, and we have Tisha Dickerson and Jennifer Rhodes.
Hey everybody, this is Jennifer, and I'm going to try and give you a brief update on what we're doing. We'll talk about our 511 update and then a smart work zone project that we did. You do next slide, please. For the 511 update, we recently redid everything on 511. We launched back in June. Updated the app and website, giving them a modern look and feel. We added the Waze data. You can see that in the screenshot on the left. We also added a bunch of smart camera features. In that middle screenshot, you can kind of see the two arrows on either side, so you can hit those arrows and go to the next camera, so you can toggle and step down the interstate. It's pretty cool. The screenshot on the right is a little info card that comes up when you click on one of the icons on 511. And on that info card, you see the information about the incident, but there's also a snapshot of the camera closest to that construction work. So then you can click on the camera and see what's going on. It's really neat. Saves a lot of time, especially looking for the closest camera to an incident or something like that. That info card is my favorite new thing on our 511 platform. Next slide, please, ma'am. One other thing I want to tell you about, kind of different thing we've done lately, is we did a smart work zone system on a project on a piece of rural interstate. The contract allowed for daytime lane closures, and we expected some significant delays with those closures. To help mitigate these delays, the smart work zone system was installed. We had two main goals of the system. One was to alert the driver to the beginning of the queue, and the second was to encourage drivers to use the alternate route when the travel times became excessive. The alternate route was predefined and signed with static signs. It was a major undertaking. There were 205 signs, static signs, that were used for the alternate route. So there's lots of work on the construction planning side to make this system work. All right, next slide, please, Ian. On the left, the signs on the left are some of the messages that we put on the variable message boards that were associated with the lane closures. We had two boards, one that was 4 to 5 miles before and one that was 2 to 3 miles before. The boards moved with the lane closure. So these boards, when the lane closure picked up and moved somewhere else, the boards went with them. The messages on the right were messages that we put up at each exit along the alternate route, and when the travel times got excessive, we used 2 times the free flow. When the travel times were excessive, we put the message up, telling people to consider the alternate route and which exit to take. That way you didn't have to look for an alternate route, we told you which one. We had lots of good feedback with this. I think it did help. You could see the speeds come down. The travel times come down when the alternate route was in place. The contractors really liked it because they felt, they were getting a little less exposure to the traffic. Overall, we had a really good success with this. We did, and we're doing another one as well. So hopefully we'll have the same type of success with that too. That's it that I got for you guys. You can do next slide. That's all I've got. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Tish and I.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. And we'll now. Oh, do you have Tisha? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tisha, are you on?
What was the question? What did she say? I don't know.
I think Tisha, Jennifer did the presentation for South Carolina. She did the presentation, that's correct. I think she's good, so we can move on.
Okay, so then thank you. We'll move on to Tennessee Department of Transportation and John Hall.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to keep it really short and just let you know that we still have our SmartWay traffic website, which we've had for years. Still pushing out the same type of information on that. The only thing that's been added anytime recently is we've added a Waze layer to where you can actually click and see what kind of information we're pulling from Waze and display it on the map. We're still doing our 511 IVR. Pretty much the same thing going on there. One of the things that we did notice, though, tied into the COVID thing, pre-COVID we were averaging about 950 phone calls a day. After COVID it dropped way down. Right now we're down to about 650 phone calls a day. One of the interesting things, first 3 months of COVID, it switched from people asking for traffic information to people asking for weather information more so than anything else. Now it's reverted back to mostly traffic information. We also use Twitter. We have 24 active Twitter pages. We have 1 statewide. We have 4 regional Twitter pages, 17 pages for our interstates, and then 2 special project Twitter pages that we use. The DMS boards over the interstates, we do push out our travel times on that. Of course, incident information. We also have PSAs that we've gotten a lot of media coverage over some of our PSAs, but also trying to do some COVID information and tying it to safety messages to include wearing a mask when, just so everybody can be safe. We still have highway advisory radio, but we too are looking into possibly sunsetting that. We do some video sharing, a lot of video sharing, not just on our website and places like that, but we make a real strong effort to get it out to our TV stations across the state so that they can use our images during their broadcast, and the only thing that we basically get out of it is they also say that it's brought to you by the Tennessee Department of Transportation. So it's good PR for us, but it gets a lot of really good information out. As far as the winter weather, we're one of those states that's blessed with about 3 weeks of winter weather, and the rest of it's just rain and storms and things like that. So most of ours is done around storm damage and flooding situations. We do push out information about winter weather when necessary, but it's very minimal, mainly just snow and ice on roadways, and we can do a county-wide weather alert for individual counties when they're having some situations. Most of the winter weather happens in East Tennessee. The majority of the flooding and situations like that take place over in West Tennessee near the Mississippi River. Let's see what else we've got here. I'm trying to edit as I go. There was a question about transit. We don't do a lot of transit as a state. Most of it's done locally into our cities. So on our 511 system, we transfer people to the local transit agencies that they might be interested in. And I'm going to just wrap it up real quick like that and say that's it. If anybody's got any other questions about what we might do, you can find out how to get in touch, I'm sure. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, John. The next state is Vermont Agency of Transportation. Is Ryan Knapp with us? Or anyone from Vermont that wants to make this presentation? Going once, going twice. Maybe we'll power through this, and if Ryan comes back, we'll catch back up. So moving on, we'll go to Virginia DOT, and we have Crystal Underwood.
Hi, everyone. I'll try to make this as quick as I can. So go ahead to the next slide. So we have many ways that we communicate our traveler information to the public using our 511 website, the 511 IVR service. We also have a mobile app, our customer service center 800 number, several different types of websites. We use Waze. We also communicate with the media. They have a specific video portal they can use to disseminate out our video. They also are very active for us on Facebook and Twitter. Our VDOT communications team
also actively engages social media outlets such as YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Nextdoor is a new up-and-coming one, as well as project-related websites. We have a big HRBT expansion project coming up, along with the I-81 improvement projects that we try to get some good communication out there with. Go on to the next slide. All right, so many of you might know that we put out an RFP and it just recently came back off the street. So we are evaluating those proposals. The innovation that we're looking for going forward will include things like many of the other states had queue warnings, geofence capabilities. When a driver enters a geofenced area, that they would get a push notification. We're looking at a lot of hands-free capabilities integrated with an integrated IVR that has conversational speech capabilities. We're also looking for infotainment integration capabilities in the future. A couple of other states mentioned ICONE work zones. We are working on some projects with that, but done through a traffic engineering, and it's not something that Scott and I directly handle. VTTI also has what they call a smart vest, and that grant fund and website is there for you guys to check out. It's kind of a whole integrated work zone app that works with the worker vest, and it sends alerts to the app, which will alert drivers that are entering that work zone that workers are actually present, not just the cones. Go ahead on to the next slide, please. So we are dealing with unknown incident duration through the use of our operations center staff. Our ATMS system does require an end time to close an incident, so we are doing some estimation, but we leave it open really in our ATMS system until it's ready to be closed, and we are notified about that from our boots on the ground type of folks, such as Safety Service Patrol or VSP. And some of that comes from the integrated CAD feeds we get from PSAP integrations. We also have transmission of real-time incident data. And then we also are working on quick clearance to help with those incident duration times. Another section of operations deals with this. It's called TRIP. And they have agreements that are expanding throughout the state. 81 is coming up, but Richmond District has a pilot from 2017, and it's been very successful with the tow companies that are able to have the right amount of large equipment that we need to clear these big tractor-trailer accidents that we have, and they get a monetary bonus for getting those cleared quickly for us. And that study is noted there. So VTTI did do a study for us, so you guys can check that out as well. We can move on to the next slide. So there was a couple of other questions we were able to cover. The COVID pandemic changed only in the sense that we provided campaign messaging on the DMS signs, just like many other states did, about staying at home, stay safe. Outside of that, we have not done anything different currently. And we are using INRIX data to make travel time decisions, and it provides our travel speed layer for our 511 website. And we also use the DDMS signs and DMS signs as well. And we use those analytics from the CAT lab for research. We are working with third-party vendors. Iteris is our prime contractor right now. We also work with Waze to disseminate some of our information. We try to work with their map editors to get specific projects added to the map, or try to reroute traffic from high accident areas as well. And you can go on to the next slide. So that's, just to make this really quick for you guys, that's what we kind of touched on
Unfortunately, Scott was not able to be with us today. My name is Crystal Underwood. Many of you probably don't know me. I just joined Scott last year in September, so it's been an interesting year with the pandemic, trying to learn a new program. So thank you all, and please feel free to reach out if you have questions.
Thanks very much, Crystal. I think just a few on-the-fly changes here. I think we might be powering through the MTA presentation, and or not. But do we have anyone from Port Authority here? Is John Burkhardt here? Because I know Dennis Modiani unfortunately had a hard stop at 3 p.m., which I discovered too late. So I guess if there's no one here from MTA or Port Authority, then what we'll do is we'll just include their materials in the handouts, and if people do have, if people want to take a look at the downloads, they can enter questions into the chat. But what I'll do now is turn this, after I thank everyone for their presentations, I will turn things back over to Denise with my thanks for putting together such a content-rich program. So take it away, Denise.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, we're running just a little bit over. I'll be very quick. This was probably like water out of a fire hose for some of you in terms of what everybody's doing. There's a lot of good information. The KMJ will be sending out a link to the slide presentation as well as an audio presentation to you so that you can go back if you want. And if you want to re-listen to something someone's doing, it'll be there. Note that also the information, the files are in the on the web here. You can download them if you want them right away and don't want to wait for the link to the audio as well. So with that being said, I need to thank all of our speakers. You guys were great. Slides were great. We've learned a lot. Please let us know if there's something we should do different or if you want to do this again. We haven't done it in a couple years. So this has been about 3 years since we've done this. If we want to continue, please let me know and we'll make sure we put it into our work plan. But with that being said, Kelly and Mary, thanks for great moderation. And I hope you all have a great day. Stay safe. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you're with family or by yourselves. But have a great holiday, and we'll talk soon. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, folks.